next few minutes, we'll catch up with our big guest today. As you know, each weekday at lunchtime between 12 and 1, we hear about the life story of someone who's contributing to life here in Cornwall or has made a big difference around the world with their work and their life and what they do. Sam Gill is our big guest after 12 today, and he is someone I bumped into at the Scythian show last week. We had a very brief chat because he was running a stand at the Scythian show, showcasing some of the things he has made with his team out of plastic that he's found on Cornwall's beaches. All of it made, it's extraordinary the things he's made out of plastic, just recovered from our beaches. And as I said to him at the time, it was depressing the amount of plastic that's available, but also inspiring that he was able to do something positive and good with that plastic. He's a young man, set up this business, making things out of plastic straight out of university. He was researching at university ways to tackle ocean plastic pollution. And as a result of that, he thought there's something positive I can do about this. And he started to toy with the idea of turning that plastic on our beaches into something reusable. And as I say, he set up Behaviour Change Cornwall, making all sorts of things out of waste plastic, and we will catch up with him in the next few minutes to find out about his story. Now, to our big guest this Monday lunchtime, and this is someone we had a brief chat with at the Scythian show last week, and I was fascinated by the story of how this came about. So we decided it was worth getting Sam Gill, our big guest today, back on the programme to talk in more detail about what he does. Sam is a young Cornishman who's built up a bit of a mission to create positive change in our oceans. And while studying at the University of Exeter, he was researching ways of tackling ocean plastic pollution, which led him to create Behaviour Change Cornwall. And at their recycling workshop in Loo, Sam and his team are creating unique pieces of jewellery, homeware, things like coasters we saw last week at the Scythian show, all from plastic that was once polluting our beaches. And Sam is with us this afternoon. Good afternoon, Sam.
Hello.
It's good. Right? Yeah, very well, thank you. It's good to catch up with you again after meeting you at the Scythian show last week. So we got a gist last week of some of the items that you're producing, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But I just want to take you back a step, first of all, back to university. What exactly were you looking at and studying in terms of ocean plastic pollution when you were at university?
Well, I came at it from a weird perspective of I started out studying human evolution and behaviour down here at the University of Exeter down at Penryn campus in Cornwall. And we were studying human behaviour in relation to conservation and looking at things like climate change and everything from deforestation in the Amazon to all kinds of big world problems. And then over time, it was more along the lines of, well, it's hard to solve big problems abroad. You don't always feel like you can have that much of an impact. And then there was a problem already, though, here in Cornwall, very evident to me, who spent my entire life growing up by the sea, which was ocean plastic. And over time, I started to realise it's not such a small problem. It's an absolutely massive issue up there with the big ones like climate change. And just trying to figure out a way that I could contribute and help out from our local area.
It was quite a step, though, from thinking something needs to be done about this is a massive problem, to then setting up your business, your organisation, which is Behaviour Change Cornwall, and creating the products that you now create. Take us from the germ of the idea that you had at university to what you're doing now. How did that progress?
Well, exactly as you said, it was a big step, but the reality was a lot of little steps. So first went to go work at the Eden Project, where I learned one of the big problems is communicating these issues. And thanks to some amazing people, I learned an awful lot there, and then went back and thought, well, I think I need to learn a bit more. So I did a master's, specifically a research master's, looking at ocean plastic pollution and what the issue was. And during that, I started collecting huge amounts of plastic from the local beaches around where I live in Loo, or from Rame Head down to Foy, and tracking and tracing and figuring out where they were coming up on our shores and exactly where they had come from. And then over time, what happened was I was collecting all this plastic and learning all about the problem, but I couldn't find anyone out there willing to help me recycle it. And you'd go up to people and talk to them about, oh, can I recycle this plastic? And they'd be like, oh, it's a bit dirty. And I'm there like, isn't all recycling going to be dirty? And they're like, no, you've got to clean it. So I started out thinking, oh, the problem is I need to clean it. And we were cleaning it all and getting it ready. And then still there was huge issues with the variety and different types of plastic. And eventually being maybe best described as a grumpy young Cornishman, I thought the actual solution to the problem was, well, if we can make something out of this and make it valuable, then we can have the money to recycle it in the weird and wonderful things that we find. So over time, I thought, maybe when we started, my mum would buy our first products were the bracelets. I thought maybe my mum might buy one and feel pity for me. But then amazingly, we launched during lockdown online, and the support was amazing from all across Cornwall and all across the UK. We had thousands of people wanting to support what we were doing. And from there, it's kind of just been a slow progression of me admitting very readily, I don't know very much at all, and telling people, annoying people about the problem, and then loads of amazing people from everyone from locals offering space to store plastics, from fields to sheds to finding it on the beaches and with their dog dragging back massive ropes and all kinds of things, to people willing to, like the amazing people up at Dewfort Associates, lending us equipment and teaching us how to make things like the coasters. And it's just been amazing to be able to actually do something with this waste, and it's been a slow evolution.
It's a brilliant idea, and it really needs to happen, because we've got so much plastic on our beaches, and to be able to put it back into use in a practical way is just a fantastic idea. And we'll talk about the process, because you described it briefly to us last week when we were at Stithians, the process of melting that down, changing its shape and changing its structure, and creating bracelets and coasters and other things from it. And we'll talk about that in a moment. I just want to go back to the sort of plastic you were finding when you were researching this, and you were looking at the sort of plastic that you were hauling up. Were you able to decipher the origins of the plastic? What is the main source of the plastic pollution that we see on our beaches?
Yeah, so the main aim of my project was to find out what's actually happening in Cornwall on a much smaller scale, because we often hear in the news and things about, and it probably started from my own curiosity from living here, but it's we often hear about the global scale of the problem, plastic food packaging ending up from rivers in Asia, ending up in the Arctic. And it was trying to drill down exactly here, what are the issues? And we actually found that 70% of the plastic on our beaches is fishing gear. And of the majority of that, that's originating from around Cornwall, around the UK, and then a proportion of it from France and Spain, our nearest neighbours across the pond. So it makes sense. And then the other 20% is marine industries, because it's the type of plastic that's designed to enter the ocean. It's just not designed to be lost.
So the majority that you were finding was from fishing gear that's presumably been lost by Cornish fishing boats and that sort of thing. How, as a result of that, how are you working with the fishing industry? Are you able to make connections with them? Nobody's suggesting, for instance, that that's being done deliberately. There are going to be all sorts of reasons why that plastic and why that's netting and all that other stuff, fishing gear, is lost at sea. But are there ways that you are able to sort of report back to the fishing industry, and have you been doing that, liaising with them and explaining, a lot of the stuff on our beaches comes from the industry, and seeing if there's ways of reducing that?
Yes, so we never start. I grew up working literally 10 feet opposite a fish quay and knowing an awful lot of fishermen. So that the aim of the game isn't, I'll say, tarring and feathering people. That's just not how the world works. And that's not how I work.
There's not a finger pointing of blame going on or anything, no.
And there's serious reasons why you need to get rid of nets from, the risk of people being entangled. There's awful things that can happen. Fishing is a very dangerous business, and massive credit to the people who, it's a really risky thing to do. And, if it's cutting off a net and having that impact or losing a life, I know which one should be chosen. It should be cutting the net, but it's what we've tried to do is work with people to, kind of show them the issue and let people come up with their own conclusion. And we've had massive support from all across old fishermen, young fishermen, all kind of wanting to know what they can do, how they can do it. And truth be told, a lot of them, there's not that choice. There is plastic nets or no other nets. The decision was made decades ago to switch for various interesting reasons. And it's one of those things of price makes it now the only option. And we've just been trying to find ways of promoting more sustainable fishing. There's amazing people in around Plymouth and Cornwall who are making traditional wivvy pots, and it's just kind of shouting about what is going on out there. We just want to become, what we've tried to specialize in is becoming, once it's ended up in the sea, is trying to find a way that we can actually bring it back into the economy and it never end up in the sea again.
Yeah, and that's what we'll come to in a moment with what you're doing now. And I said, I think to you last week, that what you're doing and the amount of plastic that you have available to turn into useful products is at the same time depressing and inspiring, because it's depressing how much plastic there is out there in the ocean that you're collecting from our beaches, but inspiring that you're able to give it a new lease of life, and that hopefully it won't find its way back into the sea or in any way polluting our environment. And we'll talk a bit more about the products you're creating and how you go about doing that in a moment. Stay with us. We'll talk to Sam again in a few minutes' time. Our big guest today, Sam Gill, young Cornishman who's out on a mission to try and change our approach to what we do with plastic in our seas, and collecting that plastic from our beaches and turning it into some amazing creations, which we will hear about in a few minutes' time. It's BBC Radio Cornwall. Justin Lee sitting in for Julie. It's 22 minutes to 1. We're in the middle of a conversation with our big guest this lunchtime, who's Sam Gill, who's the founder of Behaviour Change Cornwall, which is taking waste plastic from Cornwall's beaches and turning it into all sorts of useful products, household products and jewellery, bracelets, that sort of thing. And Sam, we'll talk a bit about the products in a moment. Let's talk about the collection of the plastic first of all. How do you go about getting the raw product before you turn it into these useful items? Take us through the process of gathering it all in the first place.
Oh, happy to. So there's nothing fancy or clever about picking up ocean plastic. Well, there's a few technological pieces of equipment, from knives to scissors and things, that can help out with the process. The reality is that nothing beats the human hand with picking up the smallest pieces of little stubs of net up to the massive trawl nets entangled in boulders and armor, like coastal armor and gabions and all kinds of things. They end up in the weirdest places, but it comes down to either we'll get a tip from a concerned local who'll say, oh, a big net's washed up on Port Nadler Beach, like we had on, I think it was just around New Year's Eve. And we'll go out there and go and get our team together and collect it up and haul it back across the coast path. Or it can be the other way we do it is that we wait. A lot of our collections are done in winter after big storms, and we'll go to certain beaches that we've learnt over time are big sinks for the plastic, like Tregantle by Rame Head, Watergate Bay, and so forth. Go down there and then start hauling up the plastic, and then we'll take it all back to our workshop in Looe and get recycling it.
And a messy old job, I'd imagine, at times, and potentially dangerous as well. I mean, tied up amongst some of the netting could be other things, could be hooks, could be other bits of fishing gear, metal, all that sort of thing. What sort of precautions do you take when you're out to make sure that you're not caught out by anything nasty as you're collecting the plastic?
Yes, so it's very important. One of the main pieces of equipment I'd ever say to anyone ever trying to do so is a pair of very suitable gloves. And it's the same type of gloves that our wonderful bin men use, that stop any nasty sharps getting in you. We find an awful amount of needles in places you'd never expect. Luckily, they tend to be entangled in the nets, which is a weird concept to say as someone who works with them, but for the general public, it's not somewhere you'd normally likely to stand. But and then we find hooks, as you said, sharp metals. Metals can be embedded in the other plastics, so you pick up something you think is going to be nice and soft, and then it turns out to have a horrible sharp piece of metal in it. And sadly, despite even the health and safety precautions, I have several more scars on my hands than the normal person. But that's the kind of precautions we need to take.
Yeah, and you're taking all the necessary precautions, and you're aware of the dangers, which is the main thing, and doing it. What we're trying to get across, I guess, the message now is that if you're going to help with litter cleans, and there are lots of, we talk to the Beach Guardian, Emily Stevenson, regularly on this programme about the work she does in cleaning up our beaches, and if you're ever going to take part in a beach clean, best to do it with an organised group because of the various dangers that you've highlighted just then. Once you've got that plastic, take me through the process of what you do to get it in shape for production, because as you say, it's sometimes very dirty plastic. So what have you got to do to get it to a point where you can then mould it into something useful?
Yes, so the biggest issue with recycling ocean plastic is the dirt. It doesn't come nice and clean and pristine. It comes out covered in seaweed, sand, which all has to be washed off. And then it comes with all kinds of nasties from industrial tar, fuel, oil, all kinds of things can be embedded in the plastic, which kind of acts as a magnet for all of the other dirt in the sea. So we take it back after kind of removing all the seaweed and the natural stuff, which can just be left lovely on the beach, ready to go back into the environment where it belongs. We'll take it back up to our workshop, and then we'll start working on all of the kind of nasty stuff. We'll get it after we've done the initial clean, we get it tested off in a lab just to check for mercury and all kinds of nasties that could come out. And then once it's all nice and safe and sound and all cleaned up, it's a lot easier suddenly to manufacture it than it is to clean it. So, and there's thousands of different subtypes of plastic that need to be sorted through and checked out, some of which, if you put in the injection molder, will release chlorine gas and all kinds of horrible things. And it's just making sure that we sort it out and find the right uses for it. And to be honest, that's the main majority of what we do.
I was going to say, so it's not a simple case of, right, we've got a big bundle of plastic, all various types, be it nets, be it pieces of equipment, whatever it is, we'll melt it all down in one pot. That liquid plastic we turn into a mould and create something. It's not as simple as that by the sounds of it. There's a lot of separating that needs to be done, and then the appropriate plastic used in the right way depending on what you're making.
Exactly, I couldn't explain it better myself. The only thing I'd add is that I wish it's very good that I didn't know how difficult and how many different types of plastic when I started. I think the ignorance was absolute bliss, because I would never have undertaken such a serious challenge otherwise, I don't think. But I'm very glad I did. And I'm very glad I was ignorant, because the slow realisation meant I had time to learn as I went.
I was going to say, you must have a bit of a keen eye now. Are you able to identify just by sight sometimes, well, that bit of plastic I know is going to turn into this, and that bit of plastic might be useful to make as a bracelet? Are you starting to be able to spot the potential uses of the plastic before you even test it?
Yes, and if you ever see a very excitable set of people on a beach jumping up and down when they find the right, there'll be a certain type of item that we'll find, from a fishing crate to a certain type of net or something, and we'll be like, oh, that's what we've been looking for. That's, HDP or PE that we needed for this particular product. Fantastic. And we'll be jumping up and down with joy, and everyone around us will be going, these people are a bit odd. I wonder what's going on.
Well, once you've done that, once you've got the plastic, separated it out, worked out what will make what, take us through the process. I said in very simple terms then, melting it down, but what is required to take that raw waste plastic and then turn it into something creative, like a coaster or a bracelet?
Yes, so we've kind of got two different ways we deal with stuff. So the majority of what we find are nettings and kind of ropey, twiny type plastics like the nets. And after they've been cleaned, they can basically be, we just have to unknit them. So basically turning them back from a net into twine, and then we can turn them into anything that we want to, whether it's our bracelets, braided belts, braided zip pulls, all kinds of different bits and bobs. We've made all different kinds of things, from zip pulls to repair jackets to kind of make them useful again, or they can be used for like older people who struggle with like little fiddly things. We can make them a nice big chunky net zip pull that they can pull down and get working that. And then but with the hard plastics, it's a bit more complicated, because basically we have to turn the big item, we have to grind it down, we then need to clean it again, because there might be parts of the item that weren't open to cleaning until we have broken them down. Then we shred them down even smaller. Then we granulate them, so you turn them into absolutely tiny bits of plastic the size of a grain of sand. And then finally you can start melting them into everything from our beads to our coasters. And it's wonderful because this is the part which is really rewarding, where we don't color or anything with our plastics, so we don't quite know what they're going to look like until we actually make them. And so when we force them with 2 tons of upwards of 2 tons of pressure, sometimes anywhere from several hundred degrees of heat, and we'll force them through a hole about the size of an eye of a needle, and then we'll get these amazing marbled patterns, and all different kinds of things will come out. Sometimes it comes out, we've put all these beautiful colors together and it will come out brown. That's a bit disappointing. But sometimes it will come out absolutely beautiful that we could never have imagined.
Yeah, well, some of the things I saw last week, I mean, you had bright yellow coasters, blue, all sorts of colours, and they were very bright and very appealing looking. It was hard to believe that they weren't brand new, newly created bits of plastic, but these were all recycled plastic, all picked up from the beaches. I'm just wondering about the potential of this beyond ocean waste plastic, because we all in our own homes get frustrated, I certainly do, about sorting out the recycling, and there's some plastic that you still can't put in the recycling, it has to go in the bin, and you think, oh no, that's going to go to landfill or waste to energy plant or that sort of thing. How much potential is there, do you think, to expand this beyond the ocean waste plastic that you're collecting, and maybe taking on more general plastic from households as well?
So I guess the way to answer this is, if I had the magical power to do whatever I wish, the only political statement I ever make is that I don't understand why every single person in the country is expected to be a recycling expert. I've spent my short but entire life learning about recycling, and I still cannot tell you exactly what plastics can be recycled in household recycling, because it's a bit of a lie, the simple diagrams they give you, because there's so many different types. Things from even cardboard recycling, pizza boxes can't be recycled because of the grease on them. So in my mind, it's very silly to expect every member of the general public to become an expert. And instead, there's countries abroad, especially like Brazil, where they send it off to a facility and doing exactly what we're doing with the ocean plastic, of sorting it by teaching a few people to learn how to sort the plastic. And obviously there's risks involved, but they manage to employ people and give them really valuable work doing environmental good. And then we can recover far more, because then it's not up to every member of the general public. It's the only sphere of life where we expect everyone to be an expert. Like, I don't expect anyone else to figure out how to construct their iPhone.
No.
I don't know how to do that. No one knows how to do that. We have an expert who does it, and then we pay them for that service. So
such a good point, and it's so frustrating for many of us who want to do our best to recycle as much as possible, but get bombarded with information and then confused about what we can and cannot recycle. It's something for the future, hopefully, that we can further investigate in this country, of finding ways that plastic can be put back into good use rather than just thrown away or buried or burnt in waste to energy plants. In the meantime, you're doing your bit slowly but surely in transforming some of our ocean waste. What sort of response are you getting? Because against this backdrop, most of us are trying to reduce our consumption of plastic, and here you are going out and selling plastic, albeit plastic that you've recovered. What sort of response do you get from people who might look at it and say, well, I like those coasters, but I'm trying not to buy plastic anymore? What do you say to people?
I say, fair enough. If you don't need, if you're going to, we try and offer something that everything we offer is a product that already is for sale. If you're going out there to buy your loved one a piece of jewelry, then albeit I'm here to sell you my piece of jewelry compared to something mined out of a different country and shipped here, or all different kinds of things. And if you're out there trying to find, you want some coasters for your home to protect your table, or you want your beaded jewelry, or you want a bottle opener, I'm here to sell you a gift I can tell you exactly where we've brought out the plastic from, and each one does a bit of good pulling out the plastic out of the sea. But I'm never going to tell someone to buy something that they don't need. That's not the way we do it.
That's not your ethos, but the ethos really is that this is plastic being given a new lease of life. This isn't new plastic, and it's keeping it off our beaches and hopefully continuing to recover it from our beaches.
So for every item, like one coaster's pulling about a bag of trash off the beach and then mashing it down and blending it down, and we've pulled out entire boats, nets the size of about 20 tennis courts in one single net. And what each purchase enables us to do is that half of the money goes straight back into paying someone to go out on the beach, whether it's me or one of my team, to literally go down there, pick up the plastic and bring it back to our facility. And the other half goes to us and anyone who helps us recycle the plastic. It's a very simple concept of like, we're a for-profit business, but we're not very good at making a profit, because we basically, when we get money, recently we're investing in like different technologies to be able to recycle even more weird and wonderful bits of plastic. And we want to be that kind of, once the plastic has fallen through the cracks of it's ended up already in the environment, then it's ended up in the ocean and causing harm. We want to be that last resort of like, well, this piece of plastic looks absolutely awful. The big recyclers aren't going to do it because it's one plastic fork or something found somewhere. And it's like, well, we want you to be able to say that anything can have use and kind of do that positive message. So,
Sam, it's been brilliant to talk to you today and to catch up and find out about the background to what you're doing. All power to your elbow. I hope you go from strength to strength. Thank you very much indeed, and keep in touch with us here at BBC Radio Cornwall. That's Sam Gill, who's the founder of Behaviour Change Cornwall. Have a look for them online if you want to find out a bit more about their work, taking all the plastic that's washed up on our beaches and turning it into something useful.